sense that the teacher's depending on us.
I did do it, and I'm happy that it's over.
90 minutes down, 7.5 more hours of testing to go. In Lindenhurst, Long Island, Carolyn Gussoff, TV 1055.
It's an amazing controversy. Joining us now is Dr. Mary Jones. She is superintendent of the Wyandanch Union Free School Districts, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
First off, how many students opted out in your school district?
Well, between grades 3 through 5, 60 students opted out.
60?
60 students.
Out of how many?
588 students.
Well, that's incredibly low in comparison to the numbers we're hearing.
But it
40.
gets better. For grades 6 through 8, 4% of the students opted out, which is about 18 students.
Well, what's the difference? Why is it different in Wyandanch?
Well, I believe that the staff in general has to be complimented for the effort they put into getting students interested in the test. Not only students, but their parents, the community as a whole, the Board of Education. I sent a letter out to the community informing them and encouraging them that the test is important, because if they want to know how their children are doing, that's the only way we're going to do it.
Do you believe in these tests, or do you agree with some critics who say they're too tough and too quick?
Well, you know what? They're challenging, but that's what life is all about. That's what children should be used to, the challenges that they're going to be facing in real life.
Some people would say Wyandanch is different because they've gone through years of having challenging situations in the schools, and you've been trying to turn that around, and there's been improvement. Is it a different situation for Wyandanch compared to everyone else because these are schools that were being turned around?
No, all children are the same. We all have the same challenges. Of course, some districts have more resources that they can address the challenges that they have. But at the same time, we are all on this road towards increasing the expectation for students' performance, and that's where our movement is going. We'd like to remove our schools off the list, but how are we going to do it unless we increase the challenges for children, unless we say that we are moving in a different direction in terms of what children need to learn and be able to do.
Well, the message we're hearing is all over the landscape, and it's become very politicized as well. What do you think of the fact that our schools are becoming politicized by this?
Well, our schools need to move away from the politics, and I think we have moved away from that. There may be some element of politics there, of course, but that's not our fight in terms of the politics. We are trying to get children educated. That's where the focus ought to be.
Well, let's talk about the bigger issue that kind of started this in many ways. Do you think that the student scores should be tied to teacher evaluations? You know, the governor's been very strong that he feels he doesn't buy the ratings that the teachers have given themselves of 98% effective, and points to a lot of statistics that show, you know, half or more of the kids are failing. How could that many teachers be affected? Do you think their scores should be tied to the teacher evaluations?
All things should be considered when evaluating not only teachers, administrators, myself, students' performance. Everything should be included.
What about the veiled threats we hear from state education officials that the federal government will reduce funding to the state, and that down the road schools will get less money if we keep opting out like this?
Well, you know, assessments and testing are federal mandates. And 95% of all students in all schools are expected to be tested in order for us to get our funding.
But that's not being enforced.
It's not.
They're seeing larger numbers than that opting out within these school districts, and there's no consequence.
I agree with you. It sends a dual message. But we have to set that aside and try to, it's going to be very difficult. It is very difficult. We have to get our children to understand that in order for us to improve their opportunities at success in life, the only way we can do that is getting the data together.
Well,
what else informs us?
Well, we're all wondering, what is the effect on the kids, too? If you put the politics aside and who you think is right and who you think is wrong. You heard one child there talking about worrying that if he fails the test, his teacher's going to get fired. I've heard other kids talk about who are taking the test, saying, I want to take the test, but how come I'm doing a couple hours of work and other people are sitting in the lunchroom or the cafeteria doing nothing?
That's extremely unfortunate. It sends a dual message. And the adults, as adults, we are to be ashamed of ourselves.
You're ashamed?
Because, yes, ashamed of ourselves. Because here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. We're teaching in school, we're teaching children to obey the laws. We're teaching them to follow directions. But at the same time, we're giving them another message. Opt out and it's okay. That's not right for children.
Where's the leadership on this? You know, the governor has pushed for these standards, but then when people have asked him, how are you going to enforce it and get what you want? He says, well, a lot of this stuff is up to the state regents. And then when we hear from the state regents, we seem to be getting mixed messages depending on which trustee you talk to.
You are correct. It's chaotic out there. It's all chaos. And it's a shame that we have to be exposed to this type of system in America. But it needs to be addressed, and I hope that the powers that be will address it shortly.
Why
because
is New
we
York
cannot continue like this.
New York is standing out when it comes to fighting this.
Yes.
Because this is in states elsewhere, and I've heard people overseas have even stood in wonderment of what's going on in our schools.
Yes, I just came back from Jamaica, you know, after the Easter break. And I've met up with some of my colleagues in Jamaica. I've talked to principals and teachers and education officers in Jamaica, and they're appalled at what is going on, because people do look to New York
as
the solution? A mecca of America. What's the solution? We ought to do something. I was about to say, get off, you know what, and address it and get it moving, because we are showing the rest of the world how chaotic we are, how we can't even manage something that we are putting together.
Well, it's a phenomenon, and our very own kids are witnessing it. We want to thank you for coming on, Dr. Mary Jones, Superintendent of Schools for Wyandanch Schools District.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for weighing in on this controversial issue for us.
Thank you.
And when we return, assessing the damage, marinas all along the South Shore battered by the cold, brutal winter. Will they be ready for summer? We'll have that story coming up.